If you would, please, all of you, stand with us for a moment of silence and as well, the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. We'll continue with roll call.
Rehnquist.
Here.
Lange.
Here.
Merrill.
Here.
Clausen.
Here.
Murin.
Here.
Moaning.
Here.
Faust.
Here.
File.
Here.
All right, and under action, I would ask for approval of the consent agenda at the request of one of our councilmen to take item 8 off of the consent and put it on the regular agenda just for some discussion.
So moved, Your Honor. Second.
It has been moved and seconded for approval of the consent agenda with the elimination of item 8 to be moved to the regular agenda. Please vote.
All council members voting in the affirmative.
As well, I'm requesting approval of the full agenda with the addition of item 8 from the consent agenda to that.
So moved, Your Honor.
Second.
A motion with a second to approve the full agenda with that addition. Please vote.
All council members voting in the affirmative.
Okay. We're going to go right to then the special presentations tonight. And first of all is the Economic Development Certified Community Recertification. Candace, do you want to come up and introduce maybe for us too? Help us out a little bit with that? Okay, I think it'd be good if you would give a introduction on our guest that's here. Yeah, please.
We had with us today Brenda Hicks Sorensen, who is the new director for the Nebraska Department of Economic Development. She was hired by Governor Ricketts, and you're 3 weeks into the job, correct? And we're the first community that she was able to visit. So we just welcome Brenda. We were able to give her a community tour today and show her about some of the businesses that make Norfolk home, and we're just really excited to have you here, and thank you for coming.
Thank you for having me.
Okay, Brenda.
And it's of course with great pleasure that I have the opportunity to present this to you this evening. The Nebraska Diplomats Incorporated and the Department of Economic Development are delighted and proud that the City of Norfolk has been recertified as an Economic Development Certified Community. This program is one of only a few in the nation that recognizes communities for economic development preparedness. And I'd like to just reiterate that that was very evident today in my opportunity to tour the community, meet with a lot of partners and individuals. That preparedness and passion were absolutely very visible and exciting to see. So I was pleased that this was my first community to visit as this new role. Norfolk is one of 36 communities certified in the state, and designation as a Nebraska Economic Development Certified Community clearly indicates that Norfolk is prepared for business growth and ready today to meet the needs of companies seeking new business and industrial location. This designation sets you apart as a community that has the leadership and commitment necessary to successfully compete for new jobs and new investment in today's competitive environment. For a little bit of background, Norfolk earned its first certification designation in May of 2006, was recertified in May 2009, and again this past January. So again, just congratulations and thank you for the opportunity to visit today, to meet with a number of business representatives, community partners, officials. It was absolutely fantastic. And again, it was evident that this was well-deserved and earned by the city. So it's with my pleasure, Mayor, if you could join me so I can present you with this plaque. Really need to look at the team that has worked very, very well together to bring us to where we are, but as well as so many of our community partners that are part
give us this opportunity. So certainly you picked the best to start with.
Yeah, might be.
I may be biased. That's quite okay. Again, congratulations. Okay. Very good. Thank you very much. It's council here that certainly we depend on you to help us keep us moving forward. So, thank you very much. It was great.
Oh, it was great. I look forward to working with everyone.
She actually is from the north, Wisconsin, and she was telling me there had been discussion about her and her husband maybe moving south. You got to come this far. This is our south. Yeah. We're glad that she chose Norfolk, or Nebraska to move home. So safe travels back. Thank you. Thank you. Okay. Next on the agenda is a proclamation here, Problem Gambling Awareness Month. Whereas our community is home to individuals and families adversely affected by problem gambling, and whereas compulsive gambling is also often hidden from family members, social services, and mental health professionals, and whereas compulsive gambling often occurs in combination with other disorders such as chemical dependency and depression, and whereas it is important to raise awareness of the warning signs of compulsive gamblers and connect them with professional help. Now therefore, I, Sue Fookman, Mayor of the City of Norfolk, by the power vested in me, do hereby proclaim the month of March 2015 as Problem Gambling Awareness Month. I had a phone call today from the group that has asked for this, and they did advise they were going to be unable to attend tonight. One of the gentlemen, my understanding was there was a family emergency, so that being said, we've been asked to send this on too, but they were very appreciative of the City of Norfolk. Okay, next, Mr. Dennis Watts, if you will come forward and talk to us about the next presentation that's...
All right, Mayor and Council, on behalf of Nebraska Warren, we'd like to present certificates of recognition to 3 city employees. Basically, it's for their assistance on getting the water system up and operational for Pilger after the tornado, the June tornado.
Do you want to explain Nebraska Warren?
Yeah, Nebraska Warren, it's basically, it was kind of modeled after the electrical and some of the fire aids, the mutual aid agreements. And the reason for it, there's 175 communities that are a member of Nebraska Warren. And basically, it's to join. You don't have to. It's a not-for-profit, anything like that. But it's a mutual aid where communities like, say, water operators from Norfolk might help a community such as Pilger to get their system up and running. And part of what's behind it is we feel that who better to help, say, with water and sewer issues than water and sewer folks. So that's kind of in a nutshell what it is.
Okay.
But anyway, with Pilger, their water system went down after the tornado. And we had 3 employees from Norfolk that assisted in getting that system operational, along with employees from Woodland Park, Wisner, and Madison. And so that we had employees from them also. But anyway, we'd like to recognize 3 employees from Norfolk. And then Rich Koenig, who is the Department of Health and Human Services, he's our field rep. He's going to come up and give just a brief overview of what they did as far as the operators and getting that system operational. He helped kind of spearhead and got Nebraska Warren activated to help Pilger out. So if we could have David Haysbrook, Ron Nitz, and Chad Roberts come up. They were the 3 from Norfolk that helped out. And as I said, here's Rich Koenig, and he'll give just a brief overview of what occurred.
Very good.
I'm Rich Koenig with Health and Human Services and the Drinking Water Program. On the day that Pilger was hit with the tornado, the operator, they were busy dealing with rescue, both first and second search for making sure nobody else was killed or whatever. And after they got done with that, I was with the water operator. They requested assistance, at least from us initially, to determine to what extent they had been damaged and what it was going to take to get them back online for their water. With that, having said that, they actually lost all pressure. The tornado come through, took out all the power coming to the community, and by the time the operator could get into town, the tower had been completely drained. None of their facilities, the primary facilities, wells, storage, or treatment had been damaged. It's just that with all the devastation that went on in the community, with 60% of it being destroyed, they didn't have any way of maintaining that water pressure. After getting into town, it was determined that the first thing we were going to have to do once we could get water reestablished was actually get everything isolated. With that kind of destruction, you got to shut off all the stuff you can get shut off so you don't have water leaks all over the place so they can actually make headway. At that point in time, thanks to cell service being up and around, we activated Nebraska Warn. The 3 communities that were Warn members that were called on was the city of Norfolk, the city of Wisner, and the city of Madison. At that time, the reason those were selected because of the number of personnel they have available to actually not impact their own system but assist another system. And arrangements were made for them to be there the very next day. Water was reestablished to the community in a limited amount that night yet of the Monday night, the 16th. And Tuesday, when everybody showed up, that's when we tried to reestablish 100% of the system back to operation. With having these operators come in, they are familiar with what needs to be done, where to find shutoffs, so forth, how to fix hydrants that are broken or at least isolate them. And with their assistance, we were able to get pressure established to over 90% of the system before Tuesday evening. With every major disaster like that, you take a bunch of steps forward and then you take a bunch back. It took right at 9 days before we could actually lift the boil water notice. These guys came back over a second time to actually help repair hydrants. When you've got a small system like that where the water operator not only does water, but he does wastewater, he does streets, he does solid waste, he does about everything in the community. He was overwhelmed pretty well with what devastation had been done to his community. Part of the reason he wasn't even in the community because he's also a spotter for the fire department, so he was out. He had to drive back into town and observe what had happened to his community. So with the expertise these gentlemen showed, we were very proud of it, because when you bring individuals in there, these individuals, of all the people that responded, we were in there prior to the residents even being allowed back into the community to start in on the revitalization of the water system. And the professionalism exhibited by them was unbelievable. And for that, I'm greatly appreciative, because we were able to restore our system back to water very quickly. So thank you for allowing them to be a part of this group.
Thank you for being here with us tonight.
Any questions from anybody about what we did or?
Certainly speaks very, very well of what it is that we have for staff in the city of Norfolk. To all 3 of you, thank you. Congratulations. It was very deserving. So, let's go back to our regular agenda now, and item number 8 that was on your consent agenda that was looking for consideration of acceptance of a grant for the North Fork Riverfront Trail Project and authorization of the mayor to execute all related documents.
Beth, can I get you to do the projectors, please?
This is a very... Yes, I do need a motion and for consideration here.
I'll make the motion.
All right. We have a motion with a second. And truly, this is a little bit of discussion and education for those of you that may not be aware of what it is that is going to happen within the community.
It's on. Where we got lights. It's on one.
plugged in?
Yeah, I've got a picture over there. You
Well, I'll turn this way.
guys got pictures of
Yeah,
it?
Yeah.
I'm looking at those folks out there.
Yeah, that's coming.
you said you were turning that way. I thought you got one here.
That's coming.
This is a grant that was prepared by staff with some help from JEO for a rail transportation or recreation trails program grant administered by the Game and Parks Commission. It's federal highway money is where the funding source comes from. The trail is in the Johnson Park area. Starts at Cottonwood, just north of Norfolk Avenue, goes along the north side of the river. There's a trail loop within Johnson's Park itself, crosses First Street and follows the river over to the railroad tracks. We'll then follow the railroad tracks back to First Street, cross the railroad tracks and follow on the north side of the railroad tracks back to the river and then north to Elm. There'll also be a loop created with First Street on the west side of First Street there. So you'll have two small loops and some extension from basically Cottonwood and Brosh or north to Elm and the river, where then you'll pick up some of the trail that the council funded last year in the park on the corner of 4th and Elm on north there, and also the 3rd Street trail along the street. So kind of have three little loops along the way there and starting to expand some trail along the North Fork of the Elkhorn River. Game and Parks Commission is providing 79.3% of the funding for this project. The Seven Centuries Ride Group has provided $5,000 of the local match, and the balance of the local match will be shared between the city of Norfolk and Lower Elkhorn NRD. So with that, I would answer any questions that anybody might have about this project.
Well, I just want to say that there are some accomplishments that happen. I think this should be one of them that is celebrated. I know this was in the works for a long, long time, and it's exciting to see when things come together. You have individuals, you have organizations, you have some clubs, and then the city staff put in, numerous untold hours to bring all this into fruition. So, and all this happens just with little or no cost to the taxpayer itself. So I think when we all come together, I think you see some really exciting things happen in Norfolk.
Councilman File well said, and I think the important part of it all is the partnerships that were formed to make it happen. So kudos to those of you that were responsible for pulling together. All the work that goes into one of those grants is amazing. I'm learning continuously. But I can tell you as well, our Citizens Trail Group is very, very pleased with what's going on and the efforts that has been put into this. So looking forward to that. To everybody, to all of our community partners that have been a part of this, congratulations. So well said.
Mayor, I just want to say my thank yous to, first off, to the Citizens Trails Committee that prioritized this project. Second, to the city staff who worked so hard with this grant application process. And then the partnerships that were formed with the NRD and the bike group. It's a great community project, and I think beyond it bringing a lot of value to our trail system in the community, it's a great first step to redevelopment and revitalization for the North Fork River area and Johnson Park. So.
Okay.
One question, when will these be up and running where we can actually use them?
Sometime in 2016, we're hoping. We have gone through the RFQ process for selection of the engineers. We have made that selection. Mark and I are in the process of reviewing the scope of services and working on a contract with JEO to complete the engineering on this project. It is a federal aid project, which means that we'll have some NEPA processes that we have to go through. National Environmental Protection Act, I think it is. So There are some hoops that we have to jump through. Keep our fingers crossed. We hope everybody's telling us that it's a lot less onerous project than the NEPA process that when you get involved with the Nebraska Department of Roads. So we hope that's true, but we're hoping to be able to have it ready for bidding late in 2015, probably have bidding early in 2016 with construction in 16. Now that's provided that we don't run into some environmental snags along the way that cause some additional study or something of that nature, so.
Any other questions? Any further comments? If not, please vote.
All council members voting in the affirmative.
All right, then we'll move on to public hearing. Public hearing tonight regarding the McIntosh Family LLC redevelopment plan. I would like to open this public hearing. And we're going to look for discussion on this. Randy, is that you that's speaking to this?
Yes.
Okay, all right.
Glad to address this. This redevelopment plan is actually the fourth public meeting where this has been considered. This is the actual hearing on the plan. McIntosh Family LLC submitted the redevelopment plan to the agency for 13.4 acres adjacent to the existing Meadow Ridge housing development. This area is described in the plan, and there's also a map, an Exhibit A to the plan, that shows where this is at. It's kind of on the north side, south of Benjamin Avenue, north of the existing development, and west of the church there. The plan was initially considered on February 2nd by the Community Development Agency. The agency accepted the plan and forwarded it to the Planning Commission, and the Planning Commission considered the plan on February 18th and recommended their approval and sent it back to Community Development Agency, who then voted on February 25th to recommend approval of the plan of the Mayor and Council. And that's where we're at tonight, is having the actual public hearing on this plan. Those are the steps outlined in statutes that you go through to formally approve a redevelopment plan. This redevelopment is expected to occur in 2 phases. 9 single-family attached housing units are planned for each phase, which would be 18 housing units in each phase. There would be single-family attached, and then 9 single-family detached lots are planned for phase 1 and 8 for phase 2, for a total of 53 housing units. That may change somewhat as this plan, or as we move forward with the plan, but I wouldn't expect it to change significantly. The plan contemplates issuance of tax increment financing for the total permissible cost, which is defined in the plan as the cost to construct water and sewer service, site prep and filling, grading and filling, streets, the electrical infrastructure cost, including NPPD's required contribution in aid of construction, and conduit installation. And if there's, if the redeveloper borrows, actual construction period interest would also be a permissible cost in the plan. The plan contemplates 2/3 of the TIP bonds would go to the redeveloper to reimburse him. Those proceeds would reimburse him for his cost incurred, the municipal cost incurred. The city would get 1/3 of the TIF to use for a stormwater detention cell that would serve this area and other subdivisions in the area. The Economic Development Subcommittee met with the redeveloper and staff several times on this project. The redeveloper says it's not economically feasible without tax increment financing, and since we need housing in the community, the Economic Development Subcommittee recommended utilization of TIF. Also included in your agenda packet is a cost-benefit analysis prepared by Lowell Schroeder, a community planner with Northeast Nebraska Economic Development District. This analysis indicates that Norfolk needs additional housing in order for local businesses to expand and recruit workers. And he did not find any negative impacts from this redevelopment, all the areas he analyzed, and thinks it will provide a positive impact to the community. Recommend approval of the resolution. There's representatives from the redeveloper here tonight if there's any questions for them.
Okay, appreciate your input there, Randy. This is a public hearing. Is there anyone else that wants to come up and speak to? I think you know the...
Hello there.
How are you? Can I
My
ask you-
name is Rick Whipperling from here in Norfolk. I've acquired some magazines from John Paul McIntosh. The Beijing Review, 1982. Soviet Life. It had come in a paper sheet
I will
as
come.
the Playboy.
Okay.
I didn't know if you noted.
No. Great. Mr. Whippling, I just want to advise you, I'm going to ask you to keep it to 5 minutes, so be careful, don't get too far into your magazines. So
I'm done with
let's,
the magazines. Would you like to see them?
no, thank you. I appreciate that, but go ahead.
Interested in communism?
Go ahead and speak what it is that you
All
have to
right,
say.
listen, JP, this is a second drink at the taxpayer's trough. The apartments across from the college.
Yes, sir.
The taxpayers gave them a break on those property taxes years ago, a dozen years ago or something. The problem with our housing is overregulation is part of our problem. And the money you take out of the private sector is actually our opportunity cost. You take money out of the taxpayers, then they don't have money future down to build a house or remodel or what have you. I think if you've got a housing problem, you should open up some lots for trailer houses. That seems to be, nobody wants to build houses here. Nobody wants to build stick houses. It's overregulation might be something to do with it. That's all I got.
All right. Appreciate your input.
Got any questions for me?
Any questions? All right. Public hearing. Is there anyone else that wants to come forward and speak to this? Good evening, Mr. Johnson. How are you?
Good, how are you?
Very good.
Just a second, I can't write and talk at the same time. Good evening. I wish this would move back, or else you guys would.
Where would you like us to go, Dick? Speak your name for us.
I'm Dick Johnson, and I'm here representing McIntosh Family LLC on this proposed project. We're, of course, in favor of it. It's kind of a, well, I guess it's the first time, at least that I can recall, that the city has used residential, or done a residential TIF project on single-family homes, which is basically what this is. We've got, as Randy said, approximately 53 lots. 36 of the units will be single-family attached, and the other 17 will be single-family detached. You know, as such, we are, in effect, breaking new ground here and trying to do it right, something that you can have a model for future projects if they should come up. The tax increment financing, I don't believe will take money out of anybody's pocket, and I don't believe it'll put money into a developer's pocket, as has been stated previously. you know, Paul has spent a lot of time trying to figure out a way to get some housing going out here, reasonable cost, you know, so that he makes a little bit of money. He's certainly not going to make, this isn't going to be a big windfall for him by any means. As you are aware, with the TIF, basically the difference in property taxes is used to pay off bonds for the infrastructure until the bonds are all paid off, and then everybody gets their fair share of the taxes. So with that, I would just ask that you would approve this. If you have any questions, I'll try to answer them.
Council, any questions at all?
Thank you.
Thanks, Dick. Any at all? Okay, anyone else that wants to come forward and speak to this? Okay. If no further discussion, I'm going to go forward and close this public hearing then and ask for a consideration of approval of resolution number 2015-5 approving the McIntosh Family LLC redevelopment plan.
Your Honor, I'd move consideration of Resolution 2015-5.
I'll second that, Your Honor.
We have with a second. Any further discussion? Hearing none, please vote.
All council members voting in the affirmative, Resolution 2015-5 is adopted.
Okay. I'm seeing nothing else on the agenda. However, before we adjourn, I would like to make a statement. I've heard from some of our citizens within the community of Norfolk that the city has made a determination to provide the city auditorium to the YMCA. And I will tell you, there has been that request that has been brought forward to all of us as elected officials. There's been discussion that has been had, but there has been no, at this point, this council has not acted upon it, nor are we ready to tonight, certainly. So there will be further discussion. But I would encourage, if there's discussion to be had, please contact the city administrator or any of your elected officials and certainly ask the questions. Because like I say, it's kind of rampant out there. I understand that we have already made that decision, and that's not a true statement. So with that, we're adjourned. Thanks for being here.